At her bachelorette party, the last big bash before the wedding, Chloe Sullivan was in the middle of the crowded lounge, locked in a deep, messy kiss with another man. When she saw me, she pulled away just long enough to issue a set of careless instructions. "You'll have to find your own place to sleep tonight," she said, her voice breezy. "I'm bringing Caleb home with me." She smirked, adding, "On your way out, settle the tab. Then stop and get a couple of boxes of condoms. And remember, Caleb's been into the jasmine-scented ones lately." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Does this feel appropriate, Chloe? Doing this right in front of me?" She scoffed. "What's not appropriate? We could be getting married tomorrow, and you'd still just be a stray my father took in. A pet. What are you going to do about it?" The crowd around her erupted in laughter. I just shook my head and turned to leave. For years, I'd worked under her father, climbing the corporate ladder, step by calculated step. She thought that put me under her thumb, that she had me completely figured out. She had no idea that I was a wolf she'd mistaken for a lapdog. 6 months ago, I'd finished cutting the legs out from under her father's corporate throne, leaving him as a king with no kingdom. All it would take was a single word from me, and she'd be homeless. On my way out of the private room, I found the lounge manager. I informed him that effective immediately, all of Chloe Sullivan's expenses were no longer to be billed to the corporate account. From now on, she was paying her own way. Next, I called my assistant. I told her to cancel the wedding preparations and to inform every single shareholder that the time had come to close the net on the Sullivan family. The lounge manager was a sharp guy. He could read the room better than anyone. He immediately got on the intercom and told the front desk to add the bottle of Chateau Lafite that had just been sent to their room to Chloe's personal tab. The bottle had been a gift from him, a gesture meant to curry favor with me, nominally presented to Chloe. That woman was still in the VIP room, wrapped around Caleb, completely oblivious that from this moment on, she wouldn't be able to afford a bottle of water, let alone vintage wine. Even the exclusive, members-only suite they were using, a perk from a shareholder who'd been sucking up to her father for years, was no longer hers to use. In his eyes, Chloe Sullivan was now worthless. I hadn't even made it to the exit before the manager took a call, then promptly summoned several security guards. After a few hushed words, they hurried upstairs. That top-tier private suite was no longer available to Chloe. I had just settled into the driver's seat of my car when I saw Chloe and her friends being shoved out of the entrance by the bouncers. "You come in here with no money," one of them sneered. "If you want a free meal, go to a soup kitchen. The only reason we're not calling the cops is out of respect for Mr. Reed. Now get lost before you make this worse." Chloe, her dress disheveled, was mortified, but she clung to her heiress persona. "Do you know who my father is, you pathetic rent-a-cops?" A smile crept onto my face. Her father? After I stripped him of his power, he was nothing more than a general with no army. Chloe spotted me as I was about to pull away. Her face tightened with rage. She stormed over and kicked my car door, her finger pointed accusingly. "Ethan, this was you, wasn't it? You think you can mess with me? I'm telling my dad about this. He'll make sure you learn your place." I remained perfectly calm. The woman was a complete fool, still trying to use her father as a threat. The man with her, Caleb, stepped forward with a menacing tone. "Ethan, have a few years of living off the Sullivans made you forget whose leash you're on? It doesn't matter what we did in there. You don't get to embarrass Chloe in public. Don't forget, if it wasn't for her father throwing you a bone, you'd be nothing today." I glanced at him. Caleb Vance, the idealized, untouchable love of Chloe's life. He was the one who'd taken her virginity in high school, gotten her pregnant, and then, after securing a full scholarship abroad, demanded a huge sum of money from her and vanished. Chloe had gotten an abortion, cried her eyes out, convinced she was a murderer who had destroyed the only thing he'd ever left her. In the past, I had tolerated it all. Now I was just here to take back what was mine. I coolly started the engine and glided away from the curb. Furious, Chloe grabbed a rock from a decorative planter and hurled it at my car. "You son of a bitch, Ethan Reed," she screamed after me. "Just you wait. I'm going to have my dad kick you out on the street, you ungrateful snake." Ungrateful? That was funny. For all these years, everyone thought Mr. Sullivan was mentoring me, grooming me for success. They didn't know the truth. Back when he was a ruthless operator just starting out, he was double-crossed by his partners. It was my father, a man who valued loyalty above all else, who saved him. And for his trouble, my parents ended up dead in a fiery car accident. Mr. Sullivan, claiming he was just managing things temporarily, seamlessly took over my family's company. Perhaps out of some sliver of guilt, he adopted me as his godson. The first time I saw Chloe in my own house, she looked down at me with imperious disdain. They said that if it wasn't for my dad, you'd be a stray dog on the street, she announced. My dad listens to everything I say. From now on, you're my dog. That way you won't have to be homeless. That day, Mr. Sullivan offered a few half-hearted scoldings, then told me Chloe was just spoiled and didn't mean it. From that day on, my home became their home. Chloe never used my name. To her, I was just the mutt. She ordered me around constantly. If I ever refused, she'd spread rumors, turning everyone against me, leading the charge to isolate and bully me. She would even make me film humiliating apology videos, which she'd force me to watch the next time I dared to cross her, reinforcing the narrative that she was always right, and I was always worthless. When we got to high school, it got worse. Hurting me became a way for her to show off to her friends. One time, in the school cafeteria, she tried to force me to eat a sandwich she'd thrown on the filthy floor. When I refused, she had her friends drag me to the locker room, strip me naked, and throw me out into the crowded gymnasium during a pep rally. A crowd of students filmed it on their phones. When Mr. Sullivan found out, he gave her a token lecture and barely bothered to say a word of comfort to me. I bore it all, studying in secret until I was accepted into a prestigious magnet school. But Chloe whined that she needed someone to look after her, so I was forced to enroll in a third-rate local college with her. My life became an extension of hers. I did her laundry, bought her meals, and even had to book the hotel rooms for her hookups with Caleb, right down to buying the condoms. When she came back from her abortion, I was the one who had a weight on her hand and foot. After graduation, Mr. Sullivan brought me into the company and promoted me quickly. Only I knew the truth. Every step up that ladder was paid for with blood I couldn't see, as I eliminated every obstacle and rival that stood in Chloe's way. He was using me to clear a path for his daughter, waiting for her to get tired of playing around, so she could take over the company that should have been mine. But thanks to Chloe, whose brain had room for nothing but partying and dreaming of getting back together with her precious Caleb, the company her father had helmed for years was left wide open for a hostile takeover. When I got home, I had just finished a video conference in the study when Chloe arrived. She brought Caleb with her. She threw open the door to the study and pointed a shaking finger at me. "Ethan Reed, you have the nerve to show your face here." I slowly closed my laptop, gave her a sideways glance, and smiled faintly. "This is my house. Where else would I go? This penthouse was a gift from a developer trying to get on my good side for our upcoming marriage. He'd nominally given it to Chloe, but the deed was in my name. Why isn't my dad answering his phone? Where is he? Why is my credit card declined? Mr. Sullivan is overseas, scouting a potential acquisition." I lied smoothly. In reality, he wasn't in the mood for scouting anything. He was locked away in a private wellness retreat in Switzerland, courtesy of some associates I'd hired. Chloe's eyes blazed with fury, but then she let out a cold snort. "No wonder you've gotten so brave. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because my dad's not here." She slapped 2 documents down on my desk. I glanced down. It was a termination agreement. Due to mismanagement and poor performance, Ethan Reed is hereby terminated from his position as president of Sullivan Holdings, effective immediately and permanently. The date was blank, but her father's signature was there. Judging by the ink, he'd signed a long time ago. So that was his plan. Use me, pin a few fabricated charges on me, and then throw me away once I was no longer useful. Just as I'd always suspected. He'd only ever seen me as a dog. Chloe smirked. "I was going to wait until the annual gala tomorrow to humiliate you in front of everyone, but honestly, the sight of you makes me sick. If you don't want to post this on the company's server right now, you'll go back to being a good little dog. Caleb is moving in today. From now on, you'll treat him as the man of this house." Caleb, standing beside her, put on a show of magnanimity. "Sorry about this, man. I just got back to the States and told Chloe I only needed a place to crash for a bit. I didn't realize it would be like this." I looked at him with a placid smile, then stood and extended my hand. "Welcome." 3. He thought I'd caved. A triumphant grin spread across his face as he reached out to shake my hand. I pulled my hand back. Rent is $10,000 a month, with a 1-year lease paid up front. The guest rooms aren't for rent, but I can have someone clear out the storage room in the basement. Pay in full, and you can move in today. The smile froze on Caleb's face. Chloe's face turned crimson. Ethan, how dare you ask Caleb for money? I sat back down in my chair and casually crossed my legs. I'm renting out a room in my own property. Is there a problem? Caleb tried again, his tone patronizing. Ethan, don't call me that. I cut him off. We're not friends. He flinched. After a moment, he said, Ethan, don't be an idiot. I know you're jealous of me, but you're forgetting about this termination letter. If Chloe announces this at the gala tomorrow, you'll be a laughingstock. Thank you for the reminder. I picked up a small desk mirror and checked my reflection. I should probably get a new stylist. I want to look my best for the party tomorrow. He just stood there, mouth agape, utterly speechless. Chloe slammed her hand on the desk, her face blotchy with rage. Ethan, you think being president of the company makes you somebody? Let me spell out for you. The only reason my dad took you in, promoted you, and agreed to let me marry you is to look benevolent and tighten his grip on what used to be your family's company. It's Sullivan Holdings now. You are of no use to us anymore. I gave her a look of acknowledgement. I'd known that all along. She sneered. Since you want to do this the hard way, you can look forward to begging on the streets. Now, get the hell out of my house. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The only ones leaving this house were them. What are you laughing at? Just as Chloe was about to explode again, I cut her off. If you can't afford the rent, I'm about to have dinner. Please leave. Caleb snorted, adding fuel to the fire. Ethan, she's made it perfectly clear. Do you really need her to call security and have you beaten to a pulp before you get it? Chloe immediately spun around and yelled to the housekeeper standing outside the door, Get every security guard up here right now. Tell them to bring their batons. The housekeeper stood perfectly still, her face impassive. Chloe stared in disbelief. Before she could erupt, I spoke up. Don't waste your breath. Why don't I call them for you? I gave the housekeeper a single look. She immediately turned and left. A minute later, a dozen security guards came jogging into the room. Ethan, are you staging a coup? Chloe shrieked, pointing at me. He smiled at her. What? Were you hoping to stay for dinner? Caleb saw the steel batons in the guard's hands. A bead of sweat trickled down his forehead. He grabbed Chloe's arm, whispering urgently, Chloe, let go. We have the termination letter your dad signed. We'll destroy him at the gala tomorrow. Chloe shot me a look that could kill. You just wait. I'll pay you back for today tenfold. I'll make you get on your knees and beg me for forgiveness. 4. The next day, waiting for the elevator at the hotel where the gala was being held, I ran into Chloe, who had arrived with Caleb. Seeing me, she wore a look of absolute victory. Just then, my assistant pressed the call button, and the elevator doors opened. She stepped aside, holding the door for me. But Chloe shoved past her and slapped her hard across the face. Are you blind? Can't you see I'm standing right here? Don't you know the difference between the master and the dog? Don't you forget who pays your salary? My assistant clutched her cheek, swallowing her anger. I'm sorry, Miss Sullivan. Please, after you. Chloe sneered and slapped her again. That one so you remember for next time. Then, she shot me a challenging look. What gives you the right to ride the same elevator as me? Watch closely. We have more than enough pets in our family. Today, you're going to be a stray. With that, she linked her arm through Caleb's and sauntered into the elevator. At the gala, the company's employees, executives, and all the major shareholders were in attendance. Noticing the chairman's seat was empty, Chloe swaggered over and plopped down in it, then motioned for Caleb to take my seat beside her. When she saw me arrive, she waved over a junior staffer with a flippant air. Go find a stool. Ethan can sit at my feet. The employee looked horrified. Every executive and shareholder at the head table stared at her with stony expressions. The vice president immediately stood up and offered me his chair. After I sat, Chloe shot him a threatening glare. After I'm done with him, I'll deal with every last one of you who doesn't know your place. I smirked. She wasn't going to get the chance. Once I was seated, the host on stage announced the start of the gala. The first item on the agenda was my annual address, a summary of the company's performance over the past year. In the first quarter, I led the company in a strategic pivot toward digital marketing. Through partnerships with over 70 macro influencers, We achieved the entire revenue target of the previous year's first half, with a net profit of $18 million. In the second quarter, we began investing in our own proprietary IP, which further reduced costs and increased profits by 11.3% over Q1. That's enough. Chloe's disdainful voice cut through the room. Stop trying to take all the credit. You think you could have done any of that without my father's full support? Let me tell you something. We could replace you with anyone, and they could do the same damn thing. She stood up, snatched the microphone from the host, and pulled Caleb onto the stage with her. I have an announcement to make. My father received a tip some time ago that during his tenure, Ethan Reed abused his power to embezzle company funds and sold corporate secrets to our competitors. However, out of consideration for his past contributions, my father chose not to press charges. Instead, Ethan Reed is hereby terminated from his position as president, effective immediately and permanently. His position will be filled by Caleb Vance in an acting capacity. A murmur went through the employees and the crowd, but the executives and shareholders at the front remained completely still. Caleb shot me a smug look and took the microphone as if he were accepting an Oscar. Although he made some serious mistakes, I want to thank Ethan for his service to the company. Please rest assured, with me leading the way, we will take this company to new heights. I smiled faintly. He was right. For years, I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into this company, building it into what it was today. All while the Sullivans enjoyed the stolen wealth and privilege, treating me like an animal. Chloe glanced at me coldly, then turned to Caleb with a syrupy, sweet voice. Caleb, honey, why are you thanking him? The company would be thriving without him. And now that it's in your hands, I can finally relax. Caleb beamed. Chloe, I will not betray the trust you and Mr. Sullivan have placed in me. From this day forward, my fate is intertwined with this company's. I will share in its triumphs and its struggles, right by your side. Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh. Thank God for that termination letter. You can still laugh at a time like this. Chloe's voice was dripping with scorn. I can't decide if you're delusional or just pathetic. I remained perfectly calm and leaned into the microphone. The company has been operating at a catastrophic loss since late August. As of today, preliminary estimates put our losses at $80 million. In addition to unpaid vendor invoices and outstanding bank loans, we are also delinquent on payroll and employee Social Security contributions. The chairman didn't go abroad for a business trip. He fled the country. As my words sank in, Chloe and Caleb froze, their triumphant smiles curdling on their faces. I smiled pleasantly. But things are looking up now. Ms. Sullivan is here, and she's brought a new president with her. The employees can finally get paid, and all our debts can be settled. I'm sure the two of you can turn this ship around. 5. The room erupted. A tidal wave of angry questions crashed toward the stage. Ms. Sullivan, your father took our hard-earned money and ran off to live in luxury. Are you going to run too? We need answers now. When are we getting our money? You're not leaving this hotel until you give us a straight answer. Amid the rising tide of anger, Chloe's arrogant facade crumbled. Ethan, she stumbled forward, her finger trembling so badly she could barely point at me. How could you let this happen to the company? My father trusted you. Is this how you repay him? Her voice was choked with tears, not of remorse, but of pure panic as her world of privilege was suddenly torn away. I looked at her flushed face, remembering the day she tried to make me eat garbage off the cafeteria floor, her expression just as condescending as it was now. I calmly smoothed the lapels of my suit. I did my best to make your family money, but my abilities are limited. Thankfully, Mr. Vance is here now. I'm sure he can work miracles. Caleb's jaw was clenched, so tight a muscle pulsed in his cheek. Veins stood out on his forehead as the employees' shouts grew louder. The man who thought he was inheriting a golden kingdom had just realized he'd stepped into quicksand. The company's initial profits were just a show for Mr. Sullivan. It was all designed to make him lower his guard, to get him to approve partnerships with a new, independent company I had secretly founded. It was a cover to slowly siphon Sullivan Holdings' core business over to my new venture. He thought I was still under his control, planning to discard me after I'd paved the way for his daughter. He never realized that, under my direction, his company's investments were pouring into my new firm with zero return. Deceiving Mr. Sullivan was easy. Deceiving the other shareholders and top executives was harder. But I could offer them something he never could, a much, much bigger piece of the pie. They were more than happy to jump on my ship. In fact, many of them were co-founders of my new company. Seeing that Chloe wasn't saying anything, the crowd grew more agitated. A few younger employees started shoving tables at the front of the room. Chloe turned to Caleb in a panic. "Caleb, what do we do? You're the president now. Do something." Her voice was a whiny, desperate plea, stripped of its usual authority. Caleb took a deep breath, his shoulders rigid beneath his designer suit. He grabbed the microphone, nearly yanking the cord out, and yelled, his voice cracking, "Everyone, please be quiet. This company has been around for years. Even if we have to declare bankruptcy, between the fixed assets and the Sullivans' personal shares, everyone will get their money. You want to sell the company? And sell my father's shares?" Chloe grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his flesh. Caleb shot a nervous glance at the hostile crowd and leaned in to whisper in her ear, "Chloe, listen to me. The company is a toxic asset. No one could save it now. It's better to cut our losses. With all the property in your shares, you'll not only pay everyone back, you'll still walk away with hundreds of millions. I'll be right there with you to rebuild. Trust me." Hearing this, Chloe instantly relaxed. I had to admit, Caleb thought fast. I gave him an appreciative glance. There's already a CEO who has expressed interest in an acquisition. In fact, he's here tonight. I paused, watching the tension drain from Chloe's face. The plan was to begin the handover after the gala. "You idiot." Chloe stomped her heel and rushed toward me. "Why didn't you say so sooner? Get him up here right now. We can negotiate in front of everyone and get this settled." I gestured for my assistant to bring me a chair. As the entire room watched, I slowly sat down. The scuff of my leather shoes on the stage was sharp in the silence. Chloe stared at my casually crossed legs, trembling with rage. "You have the nerve to just sit there? Didn't you hear what I said?" I held up a folder. "You wanted to discuss the acquisition, didn't you?" 6. Chloe froze for a second. Then realization dawned, and she pointed at me, incandescent with fury. "So that's it. No wonder the spineless coward who never talked back suddenly grew a backbone. You found a new master. Huh, a dog is a dog, no matter whose leash it's on." She crossed her arms, looking down her nose at me. "Fine, you can tell your new boss that if he wants to buy this company, the price is $1 billion. Cash." I looked at her calmly and nodded. "We've done a preliminary valuation. The company's current liquid assets, combined with your and your father's shares, are worth approximately $125 million. Caleb's eyes lit up. He squeezed Chloe's hand. "See, Chloe? I told you. After we pay everyone back, we'll still have tens of millions left over. More than enough to start again." Chloe shot him a grateful look, then turned back to me, her voice like ice. "I'm done talking to you. The sight of you makes me sick. We'll forget the extra $5 million. But I have one condition." My interest was piqued. "Let's hear it." Her eyes were venomous. "You get on your knees right now and lick my shoes clean. Then you bark 3 times and shout, 'I am the Sullivan family's dog.'" I paused and smiled faintly. "I'm afraid I can't do that." Chloe laughed coldly. "It's not up to you. I'm sure your new boss can do the math. $5 million for the satisfaction of hearing you bark? It's a bargain." "I'm afraid you're the one who can't afford it," I said calmly. She laughed and raged. "You're looking down on me? Fine. Let's see you cry when it's too late. Get the $125 million contract out here. The shareholders are all present. Let's sign right now." The shareholders in the audience looked at her as if she were insane. I couldn't help but chuckle. Who said we were paying that much? Before Chloe could process my words, I smiled. That was a preliminary estimate of the asset's value. But of course, they're all secondhand. After a thorough review, we've determined their actual worth is closer to $5 million. Just enough to cover the back pay and benefits for the employees. Chloe exploded. "Ethan, are you screwing with me? That's highway robbery. If you can't afford it, then stop wasting my time with this charade and get the hell out. You're not the only buyer out there." Caleb couldn't stand it either. "Ethan, I thought you'd landed on your feet with some powerful new backer, but it sounds like you were better off as a dog in the Sullivan house. You've got some nerve making an offer like that." I looked at him, completely unbothered. "And," he sneered, "you look disgusting with that smug look on your face. You really think you've won? Even bankrupt, The Sullivans have more money than you'll ever see in 100 lifetimes. You just wait. One day you'll come crawling back to us, begging." With that, he took Chloe's hand to leave. "Leaving so soon?" I asked casually, trying to make a run for it. They stopped dead in their tracks, a flicker of guilt on their faces. "What are you talking about? We're going to find a serious buyer, so we can resolve this problem as quickly as possible." I laughed coldly. "This company isn't your family's personal piggy bank. Whether we sell or not is up to the other shareholders." Chloe's tone was mocking. "Ethan, are you an idiot? They're sitting right there. They heard everything. Go on. Ask them who would agree to such a ridiculous deal." I calmly pulled another document from my folder and held it out to her. "They've all already signed. We're just waiting on you." 7. Chloe spun around, her high heel screeching on the floor. She pointed a trembling finger at the shareholders in the front row, the veins in her neck bulging. "Are you all out of your minds? You actually signed this predatory." She cut herself off, her head snapping back to me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Oh, I see. It was you, Ethan. You conspired with them behind our backs. You're all a bunch of snakes." I nodded at her, my expression sincere. "What are you going to do about it?" Every shareholder in my new company stood to profit. Acquiring Sullivan Holdings for pennies on the dollar was like moving money into their own pockets. They would have been fools to refuse. Chloe became hysterical, shrieking like a cornered animal. "You bastards! Don't get too comfortable. My father is the majority shareholder. As long as he doesn't agree, everything you've done is for nothing." Even as she made her last stand, Caleb had already assessed the situation. He swallowed hard, all of his earlier swagger gone. I looked at Chloe and tapped my forehead. "Right. I almost forgot. I produced a power of attorney document. The chairman gave this to me before he skipped town. He said that if a buyer emerged, I had full authority to handle the sale on his behalf. He said it was the last thing he could do for you, and that for everything else, you were on your own." This document had been signed by Mr. Sullivan in his Swiss retreat after a little persuasion from my associates. Chloe lunged forward and snatched the paper, her knuckles white. After one look, her face turned ashen, and she stood frozen. I glanced at the employees. "It's not much, but it's enough to cover what they're owed. You're not thinking of stiffing them, are you?" The moment I finished speaking, an employee in the front row kicked over a chair. A dozen people stormed the stage, their shoes thundering on the platform. "Your dad is living it up overseas with our money. What are we supposed to do?" "That's right. You're paying us today, one way or another. The father's debt falls to the child. If you don't pay, we'll sell you to cover it. You better think carefully." Chloe was terrified. She stumbled backward, her heels slipping, and crashed into the podium. She grabbed Caleb's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Caleb, what do we do? Help me, please. We have to get out of here." Caleb's throat worked, the back of his suit dark with sweat. He hissed, "Chloe, at this point, just take the $5 million. We'll sign the papers, make a show of it for these people. Once the money is in your account, we can just stall them." Chloe bit her lip, her eyes filled with resentment. But one look at the advancing mob, and she nodded frantically. Seeing this, I had my assistant calm the employees down. I then produced the contract I'd prepared and handed it to her with a smile. As Chloe took it, she glared at me with pure hatred. "What are you so proud of, Ethan?" "So I've hit rock bottom. It's still better than being someone else's dog like you." She opened the contract to sign, then stopped cold. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're the authorized representative for the buyer?" I adjusted my collar and smiled, the picture of success. "Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ethan Reed, chairman of the Prosperity Group." Chloe's pupils contracted. The blood drained from her face, leaving it a waxy, pale mask. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. No matter how slow she was, she understood her situation now. She glanced at the cold, indifferent faces of the shareholders and the angry employees closing in. Her throat bobbed. Suddenly, she lunged and grabbed the hem of my suit jacket. "Mr. Reed," she stammered, "I apologize for everything I've done. I was wrong. Please, for the sake of my father who raised you, who gave you everything, please find it in your heart to forgive me." "I almost forgot about that," I said, looking down at her perfectly manicured hand. "I remember being 12, when she forced me to kneel on broken glass and then stomped on my birthday cake with her heel. You know exactly the kind of life I had growing up, don't you? Chloe's eyelashes fluttered wildly. She couldn't meet my gaze. Then, if you just let me go, I'll do anything. I'll still marry you. I laughed out loud, my eyes flicking to Caleb's thunderous expression. Marry me? You think I'd want something that's been passed around and used up? You're not worthy. Ethan, don't you dare push me too far. Chloe shrieked, her face flushing with renewed fury. I'm already groveling. What more do you want? Enough. Caleb stepped forward and grabbed her wrist, the veins in his forearm bulging. Chloe, what's the point of begging him now? Let's just sign the papers. I'll find a way to get you out of this. As long as we have that money, we can always make a comeback. He lowered his voice on the last part, but I knew. All he cared about was the money. Caleb's words were a lifeline. Chloe stopped hesitating and signed the contract. After I confirmed everything was in order, I instructed my assistant to arrange the wire transfer. Chloe visibly relaxed, her posture straightening as she tried to regain some composure. She turned to the employees. Everyone, please don't worry. A transfer this large will take some time to process. As soon as the funds arrive, I will have the finance department issue your payments. Please, just go home and wait patiently. She was cut off by the sharp ding of a text message. Caleb leaned over eagerly, whispering, Chloe, that must be the wire transfer. Check it. Chloe's fingers froze over her phone screen. The faint color that had returned to her cheeks vanished, leaving her face paper white. She looked up at me, her eyes shot with blood. Ethan, where's my money? You tricked me. That has nothing to do with me, I said, leisurely adjusting my cufflinks. Your father owed the bank a substantial amount of money. Since he defaulted, he was placed on a credit blacklist. I imagine the bank just seized the funds to cover a portion of his debt. But look on the bright side, I added, at least you owe the bank a little less now. You. Chloe staggered back, her heels slipping as she nearly collapsed. The crowd of employees, who had been momentarily pacified, exploded. So what now, Chloe? You can't pay us today, is that it? We don't care about your bank loans. If you don't pay us what you owe us today, you're not leaving. Staring at the furious mob, Chloe's legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor. Caleb, seeing there was nothing left for him to gain, started to inch away, only to have Chloe grab his leg in a death grip. Caleb, what do we do now? You have to help me. I only did this because you told me to. We? Caleb violently shook her off, his face a mask of disgust. Don't drag me into this. I was just sleeping with you. This is your family's mess. It has nothing to do with me. Caleb, what are you saying? We were supposed to... Let go. Caleb's voice was a low, furious growl. Supposed to what? I said a few sweet things, and you believed me? You idiot. If it wasn't for your family's money, do you really think I'd be interested in a spoiled, arrogant brat like you? From this moment on, we're done. Chloe was completely broken. She lay on the floor like a discarded doll. Caleb sneered and turned to leave. Mr. Vance, I said coolly. Did I say you could go? 9. At my words, the employees snapped to attention. Several of them moved to block Caleb's path. He turned back, his voice dripping with venom. Ethan, your grudge is with Chloe and her family. You got what you wanted. What does this have to do with me? Are you going to punish me just because I slept with your ex-fiancée? We're all adults here. Get over it. I looked at his hateful expression and smiled. You're right. Your business with the Sullivans has nothing to do with me. However, you're the newly appointed president of this company. I've worked with these employees for years. I feel a certain loyalty to them. Is there a problem with me helping them collect a debt from you? The employees grew even more agitated. That's right. Mr. Reed is right. We're not done with you. You can't run. Yeah. If you leave, who do we go to? You have to take responsibility. Caleb's face turned a sickly green. He glared at me. Bullshit. I don't have a dime. I quit. This president job is yours. I chuckled. No money? I find that hard to believe. I recall you mentioning you weren't used to American ride-sharing services when you got back. So Chloe bought you a Ferrari 488, fully loaded. That's over $600,000 right there. And that Patek Philippe on your wrist. If I remember correctly, Chloe bought that for you before you went abroad. It was worth over $2 million then. It's probably appreciated since. Not to mention the annual birthday and Valentine's Day transfers. Chloe always sent you $13, $145, $20, didn't she? A numeric pun for, I will love you for a lifetime. So how can you say you have no money? Add all that up, and it should be more than enough to cover the employee's wages. Chloe, who had been a puddle of despair on the floor, suddenly lit up. As if grabbing a lifeline, she scrambled over and clung to Caleb. Ethan's right. Caleb, you have to give it all back to me. Caleb struggled to break free, screaming, "Get off me, you bitch! That's all mine. You're not getting any of it back." Chloe finally snapped. "You heartless bastard. I gave you everything. I would have plucked the stars from the sky for you. And now that I'm in trouble, you just want to walk away? If you don't pay me back today, I'll take you down with me." Having seen a glimmer of hope, Chloe wasn't about to let it go. The two who had been so inseparable just hours ago were now tearing each other apart. I watched, amused as they went at it. "Let go." Caleb kneed Chloe in the stomach. She stumbled back, but her eyes remained locked on him, filled with a murderous rage. As Caleb tried to straighten his crooked tie, Chloe lunged again, her hands closing around his throat. They tumbled to the floor, wrestling and clawing. His shirt was torn open, his chest covered in bloody scratches. Chloe screamed at the employees. "Help me. He has the money. Help me get it back, and it's all yours." Hearing the word money, the employees didn't hesitate. They swarmed forward. Soon, Caleb's face was a swollen mess, and he had no fight left in him. Chloe punctuated the beating with a vicious kick between his legs. "You worthless piece of trash," she shrieked. "I gave you my heart, and you treated me like a whore. I thought you were someone I could count on. I was so blind. Now pay up." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The line between love and hate truly is razor thin. 10. I had seen enough. I picked up my contract and my assistant, and I left the ballroom. Later, I heard that Caleb was forced to cough everything up, but he'd already spent a good portion of it, leaving him $500,000 short. Chloe promptly sued him, won the case, and successfully transferred the remaining debt to him. The unpaid employees hounded him relentlessly. He was forced to sell his parents' house, but he was still $100,000 short. The shot gave his father a fatal heart attack. He didn't even have enough money for a coffin. Even then, the employees didn't let up. On the brink of a complete mental breakdown, Caleb tried to rob a jewelry store. When he was cornered, he took a hostage and was shot and killed on the spot by the police. The story became a local sensation, a tragedy for the still unpaid workers. I used the opportunity to step in. I publicly announced that I would personally cover the remaining wages for the veteran employees and offered them all positions at my new company. The move earned me widespread praise. $100,000 for a sterling reputation and a crew of loyal, experienced workers. It was the best investment I'd ever made. On the way home from a business dinner, my driver, Kevin, brought up the topic again. "Mr. Reed," he asked. Caleb Vance got what was coming to him, but whatever happened to Chloe Sullivan? It's like she just vanished. I simply smiled. When I arrived back at the penthouse, the motion sensor lights in the foyer flickered on. From the shadows came the soft scuff of leather on marble. A diamond-studded collar was fastened around Chloe's neck. She crawled toward me on all fours. Her once perfect nails were caked with dirt. She looked up, her face twisted into a subservient smile that was more horrifying than a scream. "Mr. Reed." Her voice was a dry rasp. Her tongue, red and trembling, darted out to lick a drop of spilled wine from the toe of my shoe. Her teeth clicked against the metal buckle, and she flinched, quickly rubbing her forehead against my ankle like a cat. "You're home. I've warmed the bed for you." I looked down at her and sneered. I kicked her, sending her sprawling across the floor. She didn't even dare to cry out in pain, just scrambled back to her position at my feet, desperate to please. "Good," I said, looking down at the broken shell of the woman who once ruled my world. "That's a good dog.